you learn when you're here in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, and generally speaking in the startup ecosystem. As you said, like it's one of these tools that you will have to learn about. This one is number 12, I think.
Yes, it is. But today's topic, pitch structures. Okay.
Well, welcome everyone to a new Working Labs.
So today we're actually doing it outside in our office, and we are in San Francisco, and it's a little gloomy, but it's just beautiful. So
Don't beat the view.
yeah, seriously. But today's topic, super excited, is about pitch structures. So what does your pitch look like, and kind of breaking that down.
A topic that we talk about a lot and that people ask us about a lot. So this is going to be a good one, I think. Okay, let's just dive in. Maybe I'll first ask you the questions, and then I can always add more as usual. But give us a little context about what is a pitch and why pitching is important, and why do we talk about that topic?
I mean, pitching, I guess it's used in everything, whether it's a startup, whether it's a you're launching not even a company, but like
sales.
Yeah, it's a sales pitch, anything. Pitching structure, I mean, it's essentially a storytelling tool. I guess you can think of it as there's usually a slides or a deck component and a spoken component and a communication component. And I think it's a combination of the two. But usually a pitch always results in a call to action. It's targeted to a specific audience and usually are communicating something that you need and a specific ask, and you're kind of going from there.
Yeah. And I think it's iconic in the Silicon Valley. I mean, we should say that, just learning how to pitch is just something that you need to know how to do, or like you learn when you're here in San Francisco and Silicon Valley. And generally speaking in the startup ecosystem, as you said, like it's one of these tools that you will have to learn about. So
totally.
Pretty exciting.
Totally.
Well, I mean, we said it. It's iconic. It's used everywhere. There's an art to pitching, right? And I'm turning to you because you know about it. And there's a specific way to structure a pitch for it to be very much do what it's supposed to be doing, which is being compelling, being short and sweet. We'll talk about it. But yeah, so the question is, what do you need to show in a pitch?
I think in the prep of the pitch, first, there's like a bunch of things you kind of need to identify so that they really show up in the pitch. The first is you need to really understand who you're speaking to. So you want to understand your audience. You want to understand specifically what you're trying to get from them. And it's almost like you want to dress for the job that you want. Or, like if you're going specifically to an investor that's really informal, you want to reflect that in your pitch. So there are certain things you kind of want to know. So first of all, who are you presenting to? If it's an investor, your ask is often a fundraising ask or a building relationship for like a future fundraising ask. When you're presenting, for example, to a customer, you want them to get buy-in and you want them to eventually purchase or use your product. And then, I think identifying, if you're talking to donors, what that looks like. And obviously, if it's for them, you want to highlight your impact and things like that. But it's important to understand that each audience segment that you're pitching to is going to be very reflective of the kind of the tone, the setup and sort of the ask. Then I like to say that you should think about your W questions. Like, what am I doing? Why am I here? When am I launching? Like really and then like, how am I doing it? The W and H questions.
Yes.
I think that's really helpful because it's a really good structure. It can make sure that you're sort of targeting like a holistic kind of approach to your pitch, and that you're making sure that you are giving them a lot of the answers to the questions they probably already want to ask. And then you need to tell a compelling story at the end of the day. When you're telling a story, there has to be a moment in your pitch that makes your pitch successful. It has to be something that like someone turns to and they're like, oh my God, I remember this. This is like the best part of the pitch. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, we like to call it the wow factor because this is exactly what is supposed to happen in the pitch. As you said, it's the moment where the presentation shifts to like not only a conversation or a presentation, but it turns into like I'm convincing you to be on board with me, whatever that is for. So we call it the wow factor. At some point in the presentation, in the pitch, you should have a moment that's like, wow. So for that to happen, as Karine was saying, you need to prepare and have a very strong flow of your storytelling should be very strong. And then you have a moment, maybe it's at the very beginning because you want to grasp the audience, or it's at the end because you want them to leave with a specific, aspect of your presentation. or even right in the middle because you want to make sure that you don't lose their attention. So it's an interesting kind of little tidbit that you need to know about the pitch, but I think it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I think just like any storytelling tool, like there's a flow that you kind of want to follow. We like to say at the beginning, it's like when you're doing an interview, it's kind of the same thing. You want to build rapport with who's in the room. You want to find a way to connect to them. Like a really powerful pitch not only shares a strong story, but is also able to connect directly to your audience. So we talked about, talking and understanding your audience, but like you could start by asking them specific questions or turning to them and saying like, have you ever felt this? Or, and just bringing them in. Sometimes people like to bring a personal anecdote in a pitch, and that makes it also really powerful.
Yeah.
But I think so once you build that rapport and you get people on sort of the emotional side, you want to sort of climax to the core of why you're here and what the problem that you're solving is, or what, like the core of the pitch and the main communication factor. And then as you ease out, you want to close with your ask. You always want to close with an ask. Even if the ask is just, we just want to build a relationship, we just want to tell you about our company. That's enough of an ask. And it's important to keep that in mind.
And I think there's one point that we always talk about as well for the pitch, and that's kind of again like a tip for it. You mentioned the storytelling and the flow and the importance of building that rapport, and maybe even using personal aspects to it to like make it more emotional. We like to talk about a hero and having a hero in the story. So to make it more powerful, you want the audience to attach and to relate to a specific aspect to your presentation that you're gonna use throughout the flow from the beginning to the end. So that hero might be a person. Maybe you started with something personal. So maybe it's you as a user and that's why you built the company, or it's one of your customers, or it's your team, or it's even the product itself because the product is so powerful that, this is the kind of line that you're like, using and holding through the presentation. But think of one specific aspect. It should always be the same, whichever one you decide for, that you're going to use from the beginning to the end and kind of take it through the story and have the audience relate to it.
100%. So, like, I guess, I mean, we've alluded a lot to this, but you think what sort of makes for you like a really great pitch?
Well, I mean, you said it when you leave the room and you're like, I was just compelled. Like you leave the room and you were like, the presentation was clear. It was, short enough that I didn't lose attention. It was compelling enough that I was, just listening to it. I felt it was genuine. That usually makes me think that the pitch is good because it's authentic. I felt like, I've not been just fed a lot of bullshit, which sometimes you can see. And just generally it was clear, I understand what they were asking for. So again, coming back to the ask that you were mentioning, like I know exactly what they need from us, and then I related to it. I was enthralled. I was just like, I wanted to know more. And maybe a good measure of success is how many questions did I have, because I love to ask questions.
Yeah.
So if I ask a lot of questions, usually this is a good sign because this had, during the presentation, I was thinking of all the things that I wanted to know more about. Yeah. Would you say it's the same for you?
I totally agree. I honestly like, and I think if you flip the question on its head and say like what makes a bad pitch, I think it's like when the person's trying to just say too much. They're trying to like, they're not actually leaving you that like those little curiosities for questions. I think it's okay not to say everything. Pique a person's interest and let them ask you the rest. I think that makes such a good pitch. Also, I mean, we've seen pitches where the person talks so much that we run out of time. They haven't even asked us about us. They're not even curious about who we are. Remember, just like finding an investor is a two-way street. The same thing with getting buy-in from a pitch. You also want to make sure that you were able to draw that connection. I think sometimes it's like there's no flow. Sometimes you don't even understand what the person is doing or what the product is. Like when the products are very complicated, I think like keeping it really simple really makes sense. Like we always like to say like a good pitch has one important aspect per slide. And sometimes you see a slide where there's like so much, you're like fighting to like understand what they're saying versus what's on the slide. And I think that makes such a difference. And then obviously just not enough examples or like just a lot of like name dropping. And like I kind of hate those honestly because like, okay, cool, you know a couple people, but like what is it? How is it actually tied to results?
Yes.
And just show me the results. And I think a good pitch also is not afraid to show some data. Some very well designed infographics that have just a couple like line graphs or just like, like specific bubble charts, whatever it is that just helps communicate information well.
I agree with all of what you were saying. Um, I mean, we mentioned a lot of the different elements that should be in the pitch. We mentioned the good and the bad, but maybe it would be good to explain like where to start. Really, I mean, you mentioned it a little bit at the beginning, with the W questions, but I think it would be good to kind of get back to this.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think sorry, our mic just dropped. But a couple of things. I think first, so we talked about the W questions. I think do some research about who you're talking to. Set yourself up for success. Like make sure you try to like minimize the amounts of like questions and things that you have. Um, so that you also aren't as nervous and it feels more like a conversation because that's what you want. So, and then build a flow. So we like to do a storyboard exercise where if you've seen ever how an animator or like a movie set is like sorry a movie is like kind of created, there's a storyboard where there's like a series of like it's just a basic square frame with a sketch of what like the frame or the slide will be with a tiny short description under it. Create that. Sometimes we like to do it even on post-its and move them around as you practice your pitch to make sure that the flow of the slides works with the story that you're trying to tell. And honestly, like I can't even say this enough. Like when you're starting, like think about how you want to tell your story and practice it a bunch of times and then set that up in the flow and then you can start building. But that's really your starting point.
I think the storyboard exercise has been very transformative for a lot of companies that we worked with because they had an idea of what they wanted to say, but then just as you said, moving things around and kind of seeing the slides visually and understanding like actually this makes more sense to start with this, having this go and go after. Maybe we need more data here. Like it just helps it like make it a very interactive moment, generally
Right.
speaking. And I think the storyboard is a good tool.
I want to actually give an example. Like sometimes you see the team introduces themselves at the beginning because their stories they're actually pertinent to the pitch. And sometimes, they're part of the value add or like the like unfair advantage where they have a really specialized team. And that's okay to present that towards the middle or towards the end. So that's an example of how you want to tweak your flow to make sure that it works with your story.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I think I'll ask you the last question.
Okay.
So obviously we are talking about the studio a lot and the kind of work that we do, and we're experts in a lot of this stuff. But can like what do we teach? Like when we talk about pitching at the studio, like how do we run certain workshops and things like that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we come in with our investor hat and we come in with our entrepreneur hat. So you kind of have both perspectives in a sense, where we've been on both sides of the table and we've had to pitch and we've heard so many pitches that, this is where our expertise kind of comes in. And then obviously we have kind of the design thinking expertise on that as well, which helps a lot in terms of how can you, just conceptualize and visualize the pitch. So we come in with these like kind of all these dimensions of expertise. And then we kind of, do the work with you. Specifically, if you're doing it with us, like as a coaching session or a workshop, where we really take you from A to Z, and making sure that when you start, you just kind of, you don't really know where exactly the pitch is going to take you. But by the end, the outcome should be you have at least a good flow for your pitch and you just have to build the slides if you don't have them, or you have your slide deck and you kind of just have to prepare now and practice. We also talk about the art of storytelling, which is something that we love to talk about because this is a big part of the pitch as well. We said like it has to be a story. You have to make your audience resonate with what you're saying, and that is very much due to storytelling techniques. So we do talk about this so that you feel natural and at ease and comfortable with what you're sharing with your audience. And then we talk about slide composition, we talk about design, we talk about visuals. Like this is again a big part of what makes a pitch a good pitch. You want to make sure that you have one message per slide. You want to make sure that the message is clear. And how do you do this? With good composition, good design. So we come in with this expertise as well. And generally speaking, we're just here to help. So we do exercises with you. We act as sounding boards. We can provide feedback. And we just try and help you get there in a way that's easy, fun, and just very very efficient. Am I missing anything?
No, I think you got the most of it, and the sun's actually coming out, which is a really nice way to end this. But yeah, I mean, on that point, I think there's a lot of like little secrets to
Yes.
pitching, and it's an art, and it's really fun, and I think it's something worth kind of exploring and becoming an expert in, because there are really good pitchers, and it's like one of the nicest things when you hear a good pitch. Like the person knows their stuff, but also there's like a confidence, and also there's like a a humility as at the same time. And I think it's really special.
And a pitch, sorry, just to end on that, but the pitch can make or break your meetings, whatever they are. So very, very significant.
100%, 100%. I think on that point, we're kind of ready to close out this other working lab. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. And of course, find us on all our social media platforms on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok.
Everywhere almost.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere at lestudio.io. And similarly, our website is lestudio.io. So can you tell us a bit about our Slack community?
Yes, we have a Slack community where we have a lot of our founders and people that have gone through, the program with us. You can reach out. There's a link that you can find on our website and our socials if you want to just sign up. And leave us comments, leave us feedback, ask your questions, maybe tell us what topic we should talk about next. And excited for the future.
Thanks, everyone.